This is Block 4 over there, Section 2, the Triple Entente. This is one of my most favorite things to teach. I wrote quite a long paper on this in college. This is how the First World War began. We see on the screen a map of Europe. And this map of Europe is divided into several different colors. The two sides in World War I were known as the Triple Entente and the Triple Alliance. Let's start with the central country in all of this, the Empire of Germany. And here's the Empire of Germany. In 1914, it was ruled, there he is, by Kaiser Wilhelm II with his funny hat. He was a young, impetuous character who ruled over the strongest country in Europe, a unified Germany. Germany's historical enemy is France. Along this border were two provinces that Germany had taken from France in an 1871 war. Germany and France are mortal enemies. France goes around looking for friends with which to defend themselves from the Germans. Germany is a more populous country, it is a more industrial country, and France says the only way that we will ever get these provinces back is with allies. And in 1894, France became allied with Russia. That was known as the Entente Cordiale, the cordial entente, or togetherness. Russia and France are allies on either side of Germany. Germany looks around for allies of its own and finds the other German state of the Empire of Austria-Hungary. Austria-Hungary is a multicultural empire centered around the Kingdom of Austria and the Kingdom of Hungary, but living in the Austro-Hungarian Empire were a bunch of national minorities, including Romanians, Ukrainians, Poles, Slovaks, Czechs, Italians, Slovenians, Croatians, Serbs, and a host of others. They were ruled by an old man. This is Emperor Francis Joseph I. He had been on, in 1914, he had been on the throne of Austria-Hungary since 1848. An old man with an empire kind of fraying at the seams was Germany's main ally. Italy joins with this alliance here to form what's known as the Central Alliance, or the Triple Alliance. The Triple Alliance is the Central Powers, known as the Central Powers because they're in the central part of Europe. The Central Powers are Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. France and Russia are the Entente Powers. Britain joins the Entente in 1904. So by 1914, you have Europe divided into two kind of equally balanced groups of countries. You have the Triple Entente, France, Russia, United Kingdom, and the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy. How does war come to pass in Europe? Well, it's a great story. War begins in the Austro-Hungarian city of Sarajevo. My computer's running slowly, so I apologize. Here's the city of Sarajevo. It is a Serb city in the Austro-Hungarian Empire. And out for a ride one day was the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, Franz Joseph. No, where is he? Franz Ferdinand, I'm sorry. Franz Franz Ferdinand. The heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, the guy next in line to take the place of that old man that we saw, is Franz Ferdinand. Not the band, of course, but this guy. There's Franz Ferdinand. There's Franz Ferdinand. Franz Ferdinand was assassinated in Sarajevo by this guy, Gavrilo Princip, who was a Serb nationalist. Let's go back to the map. The heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne gets murdered in Sarajevo by a Serb nationalist. Serbia is another country in Europe. The Serbs are actively trying to expand into these Serbian areas of Austria-Hungary and get them to be independent from the Austro-Hungarian Empire. Well, Austria-Hungary obviously does not like the fact that the heir to its throne has been killed in Sarajevo. So they threaten Serbia with a list of demands that pretty much say, not only are you going to have to... It's a list of demands that almost amounts to a loss of Serbian sovereignty. Serbia, being much smaller than Austria-Hungary, has a problem. But Serbia has kind of an ace up its sleeve. Serbia is allied with Russia. Russia, kind of giant Russia over here. Russia looks at Serbia as kind of like a little brother because the Russians are Slavic and the Serbs are Slavic. And there's a lot of pan-nationalism. There's this feeling that the Slavic nations need to stick together. Austria-Hungary warns Serbia. Serbia looks for protection with Russia. Russia says to Austria-Hungary, don't go and declare war on Serbia. Alright, so we follow so far? Austria-Hungary, worried about Russia, asked Germany for support. And this is where the whole thing turns. Will Kaiser Wilhelm support Austria-Hungary against Serbia, knowing Russia doesn't want Austria-Hungary attacking Serbia? Kaiser Wilhelm gives Austria-Hungary what has come down in history as the blank check. Pretty much said to Austria-Hungary, you do whatever you want in Serbia, we've got your back. Here's the problem, or one of many problems that are coming up now. The last war in Europe between Germany and France had sort of proven one thing to the general staffs of Europe. The nation that was quickest to mobilize its country to war won. People believe that Germany won that war against France in 1871 because they mobilized their soldiers and industries and troops and trains and supplies and weapons faster than the French did. So the German army kind of got into France before the French army was ready. That was the lesson learned. So between 1871 and 1914, all these countries in Europe made up these incredibly detailed mobilization plans that the generals were loath to see changed. It had taken them 30 years. They planned these things down to the minute. How many trains cross this particular bridge carrying what things at what particular time? Now that Germany has given Austria-Hungary its blank check, Austria-Hungary gives Serbia an ultimatum. And the ultimatum cannot possibly be accepted by the Serbs because it pretty much would mean Serbia became part of Austria-Hungary. Serbia rejects the ultimatum. Serbia mobilizes its army for war, which means Austria-Hungary mobilizes its army for war. The border between Russia and Austria-Hungary is a problem. If Austria-Hungary is mobilizing for war, that is going to make Russia mobilize for war. Austria-Hungary has no plans to mobilize only against Serbia. So when the order to mobilize is given in Austria-Hungary, Russia believes that it must mobilize too. Well, that's another big problem. As soon as Russia begins to mobilize, Germany must mobilize. Germany cannot possibly have this Russian army along its eastern frontier without it mobilizing itself. Austria-Hungary mobilizes against Serbia. Russia mobilizes against Austria-Hungary. Germany mobilizes against Russia. And then France. Well, where the hell's France come in? France comes in because Germany was forced, as you can see on the map, to fight a war on both fronts. Germany had a war on its eastern front against Russia and a war on its western front against France. Russia, although enormous, was enormously corrupt, inefficient, poorly run. Russian mobilization would take months. So Germany had a plan, and it was called the Schlieffen Plan. The Schlieffen Plan, I'll show you that slide again in a second. The Schlieffen Plan said that if Germany had to go to war, it would have to knock out France first. It would have to mobilize quickly, knock out France, and then it would have to knock out France in the 6 weeks it would take the Russians to mobilize. It took Russia 6 weeks to mobilize its troops along this front. In the 6 weeks where Russia was mobilizing its troops, Germany would have to defeat France. And they had a plan to do that, and it was called the Schlieffen Plan. The Schlieffen Plan said that Germany would do a big right hook, like a boxer's punch, a right hook through Holland and Belgium, descending on the French capital of Paris from the north. That this maneuver, the attack and then the surrounding of Paris, would only take 6 weeks. And then it would leave Germany enough time to take its forces and move them towards Russia. It's called the Schlieffen Plan because of the guy who invented it, General Helmut von Schlieffen. So the Schlieffen Plan is for Germany to attack through Belgium, the Netherlands, and Luxembourg towards the French capital, defeat France in 6 weeks, and then turn their attention to Russia. So as Germany had no plans just to attack Russia. So as soon as Russia mobilizes, Germany mobilizes, but the Schlieffen Plan says that when Germany mobilizes, it mobilizes against France. Well, as soon as Germany mobilizes, the French got screwed last time because they were slow to mobilize. So as soon as Germany gives the order to mobilize, France gives the order to mobilize. Over a period of a few days, the whole thing breaks down. Austria-Hungary declares war on Serbia. Russia declares war on Austria-Hungary. Germany declares war on France and Russia. And the whole thing... Europe had generally been at peace for 100 years. The whole thing ended in a few weeks in August of 1914. With the Schlieffen Plan now in motion and German troops coming across Holland and Belgium into France, Great Britain is faced with its choice. Great Britain looks at this situation and pretty much, what the hell are we fighting about? But Great Britain could not have Germany in control of the Channel ports. If we zoom in over here, German troops along this part of the world would be a big problem for England and her sea trade and her navy. So the United Kingdom sent an ultimatum to Germany saying, get your troops out of Belgium. Great Britain also had a treaty with Belgium. The Germans could not take their troops out of Belgium because the Schlieffen Plan had them moving through Belgium. So on September the 3rd, Great Britain became the last European country to commit itself to the war and declared war on Germany. The Foreign Secretary of Great Britain, Edward Grey, kind of looked out his window in London on the night that Britain declared war, and he prophetically said that the lights were going out all over Europe. I don't know if they will ever be lit again in our lifetime. Very quickly, The war did not go like anybody planned. France's plan was to attack Germany over those provinces. That attack failed. Germany's plan was to Schlieffen Plan, to roll with that right wheel into northern France. They got within a few miles of Paris, but that right wheel that we talked about, rolling through here due to British troops, also slowed down and failed. So nobody's plan went the way it was supposed to go. And by October of 1914, the fighting had stopped. The troops had stopped moving. The fighting hadn't stopped, but there was a line of trenches along northern France. On one side were the Germans, on one side were the French and the British, and no one could go anywhere. This line of trenches stretched from the Swiss border all the way up to the English Channel. Literally, unbroken line of trenches from the Swiss border to the English Channel. Over in the east, the Austro-Hungarians had won a few successes against the Serbs. The Russians had gotten destroyed in the Battle of the Tannenberg Forest here in East Prussia, but Russia was so huge that the Germans couldn't really do anything to follow up on their victory, and Europe settled into three years of unprecedented slaughter, as millions of men were killed over tiny, tiny advances in land. Back in the United States surveyed this scene and declared its neutrality. American neutrality pretty much said that the United States would trade with whoever could afford to trade with the United States. American ships were to be protected. A lot of money is loaned out. The British and the French especially take advantage of American loans and American trade. So what starts to happen is the United States trades a lot more with the Entente powers, the Allied powers, and not the Central powers. But the general sense in the United States was we should stay the heck out of this big old mess that was the war in Europe.